tá bom. Vai lá agora, YouTube. Demora um pouquinho, tem uns 20 segundos de delay. Vê pelo menos o Twitter e o Twitch. Pronto, e vê o Twitch. Isso é YouTube, vê o Twitch. Pronto, e agora falta ver só o YouTube. Pá, YouTube não estamos a conseguir. Está live, Jesus, clica lá. Meu Deus, já a terceira.
Tens um bicho aqui.
Diz?
Tens aqui um bicho.
Eu vi a primeira. Desculpa, estás bom? Como é que é? Prazer em ver-te outra vez, caralho.
Eu acho que vejo-te agora és famoso.
Espécie, famoso.
É uma influência.
Vernon, can you let me know if there's anyone here, or we go to start? Yeah, let me know. We good? All right, so welcome again to another PHP Portugal. Super happy to be back to Lisbon and to have another event about PHP, especially here in Portugal. And again, for those who don't know me, my name is Nuno Maduro. I am a PHP developer that lives in Portugal that works for Laravel as a Laravel core team member. I'm also the creator of multiple open source tools in the PHP ecosystem, things like Past PHP, Collision, OpenAI, and a few more. If you don't know PHP Portugal, it's mainly an event about PHP, but also about web technologies here in Portugal. And we have been actually in multiple cities already, including Lisbon, of course, but Porto, Leiria, Viseu, Faro, and more. If you love PHP, this is your place. If you don't, this is also your place. If you like to bash on JavaScript, this is even more your place, okay? It's actually the perfect opportunity for those of you who actually want to become a speaker. You know, I'm actually one of the founders of this meetup, but it's only the second twice I actually speak. So if you want to be a speaker, you can actually come to me and let me know. I will give you 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 or 30, whatever you want. This will be your stage if you want to. You can speak about PHP, about JavaScript, any topic is welcome into this meetup. Now, there is one thing you can do if you want to help us, and it's literally for free. During the event, we are going to have talks, we are going to have networking, we are going to have food, pizza, beers, everything. Be sure to take a picture. It's actually free, you know, just grab the phone, take a picture, use the hashtag PHP Portugal, and that raises awareness. Basically, other developers will see how cool you are and join the event potentially next time, okay? That being said, we do have a Telegram group, which is literally the place we use to communicate every single day. We talk about PHP, we talk about technologies, Laravel, what's coming new. So if you like that kind of stuff, if you're a little bit geek like me, this is your place. Now, this QR code will be displayed at the end of the event. Okay? So at the end of the event, if you were not able to arrive in time, or if you're not able to scan the QR code, at the end of the event, I'm going to actually keep this screen for you so you can, join the Telegram group. That being said, just a few words to our sponsors today. One of them is obviously Mollie, right? Mollie is literally, you guys don't know this, but the very first event of PHP Portugal, we are now with 15 events already, but the very first event was 4 years ago. We did the math right, I think.
Yeah.
And that was with Mollie as well. So we are returning to Mollie. Mollie is one of the very few companies in Portugal who always welcome PHP Portugal community. And honestly, it feels really good. And I would like to actually give you 5 minutes on stage to talk about Mollie.
Perfect, thanks. First of all, great that we have so many people here on a Friday night. I'm actually positively surprised, so that's great. This is the third time we are hosting PHP Portugal. My name is Vernon. I'm Director of Engineering at Mollie. I have been with Mollie in Portugal for 3.5 years, with Mollie itself for 9 years. Probably Mollie is not very well known in Portugal yet. We started a hub here. We are officially founded in 2004. We started as a payments company in Amsterdam. And some time ago we realized that hiring just talent in Amsterdam is hard because we have a lot of companies out there all chasing the same talent. But we moved to 3.5 years ago to Lisbon just for engineering. Right now we are in this nice office, allowing us to grow more. We actually also opened up for the Portuguese market. I think it was 1.5 months ago. Which is really exciting, and that also means that our team here is expanding from just engineering to also products, sales, and customer support. So that's really nice. We're here to stay. We are hiring. So yeah, our stack is, I would say, mainly PHP. We also do some Java, but I don't think actually in Portugal. So that's a plus. We also do content in React and React Native. But mainly PHP, I would say. So PHP is close to our hearts. We are hiring talent, so if you are keen to learn more about Mollie, our culture, feel free to reach out to myself, one of my colleagues. We are here, and I think that Nuno will also share something about or the link to our jobs forum afterwards. And if you are, as an engineer, integrating payments at some point, do consider Mollie. We have a very nice API that you can integrate with, and we are a local player. I want to leave it at that. Enjoy tonight, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. So we are talking about a company who does PHP every day, who hosts PHP events and have beer on the fridge. If I were an employee, this will be the first company I would look for, honestly. So I'm going to share the link of the job opportunities of Mollie on the Telegram group, but it's jobs.mollie.com. And, it's a great company. I would join them if I could. And honestly, just keep an eye on it, okay? The second sponsor, for the first time ever, Laravel, which you guys probably know Laravel, right? The open source framework. But in fact, Laravel actually also have commercial offers. One of them being Laravel Cloud, which is a product I work on. So it's good. And what it does, it basically allows you to ship your Laravel applications to production. So if you have a Laravel app that you are playing with, you can literally have that application online under 60 seconds with Laravel Cloud. The second commercial offer we are about to launch is called Nightwatch, and what it does allows you to basically monitoring your Laravel app like nobody other product does. So that product is coming out next week. Speaking about Laravel Cloud and Nightwatch, we actually have a bunch of speakers. So after the event, we are going to have some networking, and there is a bunch of stickers along the tables if you want to have some merch. And also I have this PHP t-shirts right here, which are for the people who are come to me and have the most interesting questions. Okay, we have 3 t-shirts left. So yeah. Speaking still about Laravel, I do have a surprise for some of you. Who know about Laravel here? Raise your hand if you worked or know Laravel to begin with. Do you guys know the creator Taylor Otwell? Yeah. You do? Okay, I do have a surprise for you all, I think. Okay. Here we go.
The creator of Laravel. I just wanted to say thanks for having an event in Portugal. Events like this is what makes the Laravel community special. I hope Nuno does a good job speaking for you, and hope you have a great time. Make a bunch of new friends, get inspired to ship something awesome. We'll be shipping Laravel Nightwatch to you next week. I hope you check it out. Have a great time. See ya.
So honestly, it feels good to have Taylor here via video, of course. However, we did have Taylor actually once in our meetup. That was a good one. Anyway, thanks Laravel for sponsoring the meetup too. That being said, today we have a busy schedule. We have the first speaker, which is me. Again, this is the second time I speak on this meetup. We have more than 10 meetups already, but I did want to speak on this one because I created something new and I want to share that with you, okay? I'm going to talk about introducing Pokio. The second speaker is Heat, and he will be speaking about Laravel open source development 0 to hero. And afterwards, and this is the most important part, after the two talks, be sure to stick around and actually make friends, have pizza, have a couple of beers if you want to, Diet Coke, everything. We have everything over there. Stick literally for the network because it's the best part ever, okay? That being said, let's jump to the first talk. Now, this will be the most informative talk we have ever seen. Typically, I do spend quite a few time actually preparing my talks. This was not the case. That being said, again, if you don't know me, I am Nuno from the Laravel team, but I also created this framework, okay? This framework is called Past PHP, and it's literally one of the most popular testing frameworks on the PHP world. And what it does, if you do a little bit of JavaScript, you're probably familiar with this syntax, it expect. Okay, this is called it came from Ruby, but then Jest implemented, but now we didn't have that on PHP, so I did that, all right? So we have this it expect kind of API for PHP with Past. Now, Past was released literally 5 years ago, and since then it became popular. We implemented a bunch of new features. However, actually over time, some of these features have become a little bit slow. Now, if you look a little bit into the features that Past PHP provides you, and I'm kind of positive of this, we're probably one of the most complete testing frameworks in the world at this point. We have things like mutation testing, type coverage, architectural testing, even team management. You don't need Trello. You can actually manage your team through Past. Now, the problem with Past is that over time, it did become slow here and there. Just to give you a perspective, this feature we have here, call it type coverage, which is literally a way of checking how many types you have in your code, takes 5 minutes on Laravel Cloud, which is a huge project. Now, 5 minutes is a bunch for me. I can go for a coffee, I can come back, probably still running, and it's a lot of time, okay? Type coverage is slow, and one of the things I really wanted for Laravel on US, which is coming out this summer, is release Past 4 with a bunch of performance improvements, okay? And I actually started to look into some of the frameworks we have on the PHP ecosystem to make things faster. Because one of the things we have with type coverage, and I can actually just show an example of what type coverage is about. So here, for example, I'm going to walk through every single file I have on my project and tell you exactly how many types you have in your system. And something I noticed is that I was actually checking every single file sequentially, so one by one. I literally have a $4,000 laptop right here, and I was literally using on one CPU, okay? And that was slow, and I wanted to make things faster. And the only way of making this actually faster is starting using some sort of parallelization, asynchronous programming, to literally, instead of going file by file, I use the power of this laptop, and I go 10 files each time, for example, or even more than that. So I started to look in some of the synchronous frameworks we have in the PHP ecosystem, and let me show you. So we actually have a few out there already. One of them is called React PHP, okay? And literally allows you to do what I was requesting to, which is asynchronous programming in PHP. Now, what is the problem with React PHP? It actually requires you to change the underlying code. So if you have any PHP code that is blocking something like a sleep or a file get content, you need to actually change those implementations with React PHP implementations. That means going to all your code and change everything. And I didn't want that. I want to have vacations, go to the beach, you know, so I didn't want this. The second thing I had was this thing called Swole, okay? And you probably know Swole if you do any advanced PHP. And what it does is kind of like React PHP. You can have asynchronous programming as well on PHP, but has the same problem. You need to change the underlying implementation and use Swole functions. Now, on top of that, requires you to have an extension installed as well. So kind of, I didn't want that because PAST runs on every environment we know. So I cannot afford people that don't have Swole cannot run PAST. We have Spatie Fork, which I don't know if you do Laravel, but if you do, Spatie is like the king of packages in the PHP ecosystem, okay? If you want something, Spatie has. Anyway, something they have too is literally asynchronous programming too, through Spatie Fork. Now, Spatie Fork relies on one extension that it's not available on Windows laptops. It's called PCNLT. It's a PHP extension which is not available on every single laptop. If you run on Windows, you cannot use it. If you are on the web, you cannot use it. So there is a bunch of limitations which I couldn't afford to, because PAST runs on every single laptop in the world. So I did what everyone does. I reinvented the wheel. Okay? So I did my own asynchronous runtime for PHP, and that's what this presentation is today about. I created something called Pokio. Do you guys have any idea why did I call this Pokio? What's up? Nope. That was a good one, though. Nobody does Rust here. Okay, so Rust has something called Tokyo. Okay? So I did like a very smart dude did in the past. I take the T, put a P, and we got Pokio. Okay? So Pokio, it's literally just like Tokyo is for Rust, but for PHP is that simple asynchronous API for PHP. Now, there is a really cool thing about Pokio, is that you don't have to change anything. Like literally, if you have two tasks just like this, you just have to wrap them within an async callback, and that's it. That's the only thing you have to do asynchronous programming. So let's take a look at this one. I have this task number 1, which takes 2 seconds. I have this task number 2, which also takes 2 seconds. Now, with regular PHP, this will be sequentially, it will take 4 seconds, right? Not with Pokio. It takes just 2 seconds. This is how simple something like Pokio is, because I can literally go to my past code, my past PHP code framework, and just wrap a bunch of things that I need to be executed in parallel. Okay? Now I want to show you a couple of examples to show you how easy it is actually to use this framework. So let's jump here to the best editor in the world, which is PHP Storm. You guys agree, or it's not PHP Storm? It is, right? If you do PHP, you know what I'm talking about. Literally PHP Storm for the win here. That being said, let's type here something which is PHP Artisan Benchmark. If you don't know, this package comes from Christopher Rumpel, a Laravel core team member, which allows you to do benchmark artisan commands. I want to make the font 10 times bigger though, so you guys can see everything. Okay, so let's make here this 36. And let's make. Do you guys even know how to change the font on the terminal? Now this will take forever now, because they have literally no idea. Ooh, maybe they didn't know. What's up?
The third option,
Yeah, but this is like the font from the editor, not from the terminal. Why would you do both? I have no idea.
Doesn't control zoom work? The control scroll work?
That's a good option. Ooh. Oh, here we go. Is it good? I think it's good, right?
Good, yeah.
Okay. Well, you are in the front. Of course it's good. All right. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to do like this. I'm going to. 1 second, chat. Ooh. Here we go. PHP Artisan Benchmark. And let's type benchmark the sync command. Again, we have one task, takes 1 second. 2 tasks, takes another second. Both combined, I expect to see the number 2 on the bottom. Kind of simple, trivial, regular PHP, bam, bam, boom. That's it. Now I'm going to go all the way down and run this asynchronously with Pokio. So same thing, 2 tasks, and I run them using Pokio now. So I async both tasks, and I wait for both at the end. And if I do this, simple stuff, I go from 2 seconds to just 1 second. So it's twice faster. Now, this is not whoa, right? However, if I go all the way down, I have an example where we have the same thing, but now with 10 different tasks. And then we have literally this jumping from 2 seconds to 10 seconds sequentially, which kind of sucks, to be honest, right? Waiting 10 seconds. It could be 10 minutes, for example, if we talk about a test suite, for example. Now, I'm going to run this exact code just below, but again, doing the same logic, just wrapping all the tasks within an async callback. And then at the very end, I'm going to wait for everything. And finally, with this real example, I'm effectively leveraging all the power of my CPU in going from 10 seconds to just 1. That's the difference between having a 10 minutes test suite and having a test suite that takes just 1 second. So you can see how that simple this API is. Kind of, if you have done any kind of JavaScript through promises, it's kind of the same stuff. And to be honest, just for the fun, I actually have done the then callback as well. So here, for example, you can literally just do an async closure and then execute something else. So here, for example, I have one task, which takes 1 second. And then I'm going to do something else, which also takes 1 second. So both combined takes 2 seconds. Just below, kind of the same thing. Okay, so we have 2 tasks. Each one takes 2 seconds. Synchronously, this will take 4 seconds. But with Pokio, it takes just 2. Okay, here we go. Which is kind of cool, to be honest. And I think like the real thing on this project, it's not like being able to put this async callbacks. It's literally the fact that you don't have to change anything, okay? So just use the sleep, all the functions you love in PHP, and it really just works, okay? Which is very different from React PHP, from Swole, which you have to, like in React, for example, you would have to do something like this, you know what I mean? Like React Sleep or attach their own functions, which kind of, I don't like to see this. I have React, which is kind of like React.js, so I want to stay away from that, right? Exceptions, which is important. Exceptions, right? So behind the scenes, I'm actually using still the PCNLT extension that SpaCyFork is using. And the real challenge on that extension is that, in fact, this piece of code is being executed in a different process. So the way Pokio works is literally, you see a main process coming, and then when you do an async, we'll copy that process in memory to execute this callback. So you can think about 1,000 problems already, but one of them is actually throwing this exception to the parent process. So if I go here, I can quickly demo to you that equally exceptions works as expected, and they are properly propagated to the parent process. So here you see the exception just like normal, okay? What else I want to show you? I want to show you the finally, which is also cool, okay? So sometimes you have literally an async task, and you have a then, for example. But then, within that sync callback, you may have an exception, and you want to perform some kind of, clean code, for example. So you can attach a finally, just like a try finally thing. So if I type this, you hopefully see doing some cleanup, which you do, and then just below the actual exception being bubbled up to the parent process, okay? I think this is trivial stuff. If you have done any kind of JavaScript, this will feel like peanuts for you. But I want to show you one last thing, which is useful, okay? This is useful. Fire and forget. The most basic example is literally you want to return a response to the user, but you want to kind of send an email in background. Well, that really works with Pokio. Just do async. You never await because you don't have to. And then you return the response to the user. So if I type something like PHP artisan fire and forget, hopefully we are going to see returning a response to the user. So at this point, the guy is actually seeing the thing, but we are also sending the email afterwards at any point, which is kind of cool. Now, I think this project is simple. Well, simple, at least the usage. The implementation, though, is not that actually simple. And I want to show you some of the cool things I have found on this project, okay? So let's jump into Pokio, and I want to show you two interesting things about Pokio, okay? The very first thing is that I have told you, if you have paid attention, that this extension right here only works on Unix systems, okay? It doesn't work on Windows, effectively. So the workaround I have for that is, literally, I have this very interesting class called kernel. So I give it a complex name, so it looks like sophisticated, Call this class kernel, and then I'm going to zoom, don't worry, okay? 1 second, Here we go. And then within this class kernel, I have literally some, just the if condition, which does support fork. So what this does is that eventually, if I implement this on past PHP, if you are running past PHP on Windows, for example, which doesn't support fork, I'm going to rely on sequential code, which is called this sync runtime. However, if you are running on Mac OS or potentially WSL or Linux or anything normal, I rely back. Was that bad? I apologize. If you're running on a Unix system, this will literally fall back to the fast runtime, which is fork on top of PCNLT extension, and use literally all the power you have in your MacBook. So this is one interesting thing. The second one, it might look a little bit more advanced, so if you don't get it, it's fine. I don't get it as well, okay? So I'm going to go all the way down into the README. And there is something interesting about this fork extension, let's say, which is, I told you, like, every time you use sync, or async, apologize, you are literally copying that existing state in PHP and forking it into a new process. And if you async again, it will do the same thing. So if you have 3 asyncs, there will be 3 different processes, literally unique processes at the same time. Now, you probably have seen as well that we bubble up exceptions. We also, for example, return results to the main process. So how exactly is this happening? Okay, we are using something that I have never used. Always sound cool, but I never used. Call it FFI. Are you guys aware what is FFI? Does anyone know? Okay, I didn't know as well before using it. But what FFI is, ignoring a little bit the real definition, is literally allows you to use C code in PHP. Okay? FFI is about using real C code on your PHP code. So what I do is the following. I have the main process, and before creating a separate process for the asynchronous task, I literally allocate the space in memory. And what I tell the child process is run whatever you have to do. When you are over, just write the result to the space I have allocated for you. Okay? And I use this using C code because with PHP you cannot actually access the various space in memories. So this is interesting, okay? I hope you guys find it interesting. This is literally Pokio. Do not use this, okay? I apologize, but do not use this. It's not complete. I have made this to my own usage so far. And while I'm telling you do not use this, this is already with 3,000 downloads. So I don't know who's using this already. 3,000 downloads, like I think it's more than 200 GitHub stars. So I don't know who is using this, but don't use this. It's not ready. I have kind of tested it a little bit. It's already been used on PAST4 in Laravel Cloud, but do not use this. I want to finish with showing you a little bit of the package structure, if you guys want to see. Now, I create packages. You guys probably have seen a few of them, like Laravel Pint, Past, Larastan, and others. I'm going to show you a little bit of the way I organize my packages in PHP. So the first thing I have is this .github. If you use GitHub, just use GitHub Actions, okay? Especially for your free stuff, OB stuff. It's literally for free, runs fast, just works, and honestly, I love it, okay? So GitHub for the CI. Then I have typically 2 folders, art and docs, okay? The art will contain the logo of the project, which by the way, it's kind of cool, right? It is kind of cool. So on the art folder, I have the logos. On the docs folder, I have, guess what? The documentation. So every single MD I may need for this project will go under docs. On the source folder, I will have the source code. So every single line of PHP will be within the source directory. And just below, I have the test suite, which contains past PHP tests. So past use Pokio, Pokio uses pasts. You see how this goes, right? A little bit of inception right here. And then I have something that not a lot of people in PHP world do, which is I do test the typing API, okay? I don't know if you guys know PHP Stan. You probably do. It's the TypeScript of PHP. Now, when you use PHP Stan, something you love is every time you run vendor bin PHP Stan, you don't want to see a red, right? Just because you run a composer update. So what I do is that I have this testing to ensure that every single type I'm returning doesn't change on every new version, okay? Which is, you know, on JavaScript, especially on TypeScript, you do see some testing around type definitions. But on PHP, this is something that not a lot of people do. I do, but not a lot of people do, okay? And I want to end by showing you something really cool as well. My composer.json, okay? I love testing, and I want to show you some of the tooling I use around testing, okay? And then I want to ask you, who are using this stuff too, okay? Laravel Paint is the code formatting tool for PHP. If you need your code to be formatted, just like Go formatting Go, for example, you can use just Paint. You don't have configuration files. It really just works. Who is using Paint here? Raise your hand if you are using Paint. Okay, how about the others though? Use another language, huh? I see. Okay. Pack PHP. This one I won't ask you what it is because literally it's kind of new. I launched this package a couple months ago. What it does, it detects typos in your code. So if you have English mistakes in your project, this project will literally tell you, okay? Then we have Past PHP for testing. Who is using Past here? Raise your hand if you're using Past. Who's using PHP Unit? That's 50-50, not bad, not bad. And I'm using type coverage, which again, it's one of the packages that we're going to leverage, Pokio. And I can tell you that type coverage is now up to 4 times faster thanks to Pokio. And I've also implemented fast, which become instant. So that was cool. So on the cloud, instead of taking 5 minutes, it's taking 0 seconds. PHP Stan, again, very important. By the way, if you are PHP developer in 2025 and you are not using PHP Stan, start using it today, okay? It's a TypeScript, like literally the TypeScript of PHP. Just works like magic, okay? You can do generics, you can do pretty much everything you would do on the real language, you can do it in PHP with PHP Stan, okay? And finally, Rector PHP, really useful. Does anyone here works with legacy code? Anyone? Okay, if you work with legacy code, Rector PHP is your friend. This tool right here can bump your project from PHP 7, PHP 8.1, 8.2 up to the latest version in 10 seconds. Okay, it really just works. Just install this, run Rector, bam, bam, boom, done. And you can still charge your client a bunch of money if you want to. Okay? And finally, Symfony var dumper to have the best debugger in the world, which is? There you go. Thank you so much. All right, so we are not doing a break though, meaning that we jump to the second talk right now, but then we have a bunch of time for networking. I think it's just better. Then we can just have beers and everything really. So I'd like to welcome on stage Hiji. All right, so by the way, everyone, this is the first time we are literally streaming this to the world. So we are live on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, pretty much everything. There we go.
Oh, all right.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Such nice presentation by Nuno and really interesting package. I was also looking forward to learn about Pokio itself because it's looking interesting and we really needed some asynchronous process for PHP. Right. And after seeing that, you might also be wondering, okay, how do you build these open source packages, right? Because you might also be wondering how to get started on that. And in this session, we're going to be talking about how to go from zero to hero in terms of Laravel open source package development. Now, before we begin, who am I, right? I got here and I'm talking about open source projects, but who am I? Well, first of all, my name is Yeet and it's pronounced as Yeet because I eat them bugs away. I'm fresh in the country, I'm fresh in the company, I'm working as a software engineer at Mollie. I'm a strong advocate of open source software, I believe in the spirit of it. As a matter of fact, I'm also a licensed meme connoisseur, I will say. You will see from the presentation itself. I love building scrappy tools and I've been doing open source development since 2018. Now, since we mentioned open source, these are my Word contributions. Chaotic Schedule is a package for Laravel that allows you to designate schedules to run at random intervals. We also have White GitHub Pages deployer and Darkest PR. These are my Word contributions to the open source, I would say. And it's quite a fun tool. It's basically a bot that narrates your development process according to the context that is going on in the repository. Quite unique. Now, who are you though? Let's get to know you. Who in the last 6 months did any kind of open source development or contribution? Okay, not bad, not bad. And how about last 3 months though? Okay, how about this last month? Perfect, impressive. Well, I would prefer to see more hands, but that's good. That means at the end of the session, we'll have a lot of open source heroes among us. Now, why open source, right? Why do we develop them? Well, one of the reasons is something that we see every single day. Whenever I open LinkedIn, I see PHP is dead once more. Like every single day we see that. I don't know, for the last decade, I've been seeing that and it never dies because as of the latest updates, both in PHP and Laravel, it's going strong, I would say. It's going real strong. But you can also do your part by doing open source contributions to keep the community alive, because one of the measures that define whether a language is alive or not is based on how many open source contributions it gets. Another thing, leave a legacy behind, not legacy code. This is an interesting project by GitHub back in 2020. Back then, GitHub took all the open source packages on GitHub and put them in Arctic Vault for long-term storage for decades, I would say. And it was a really interesting one. And as you can see, they had these microfilms to store them for maybe hundreds of years. And the interesting thing is, if you ever develop open source software in 2020, you would have this unique badge that is quite unique and you can't really obtain it anymore. So it's a good flexing point, I would say. Talking about flexing, open source is also good for developer cloud. You can always flex on your colleagues, your teammates, your friends, because you can always say, well, my repository has 5 stars. I mean, nowadays 5 stars is not easy, I tell you that much. And another reason, well, the world is built on top of it, like quite literally. I really like this comic from XKCD because like you see all these commercial applications and it is relying on a single small piece of open source software. And that guy is just maintaining it for free, no dime whatsoever. And it also includes Mollie. We also use open source software. So 96% of all commercial applications worldwide use open source software. And if you ever want to know how open source is important, try developing any kind of software without using open source. And let me tell you right now, you probably won't get far because at least PHP is open source too. Now, if you need more reasons, there are a bunch of them. It's good for fresh graduates because it's difficult to get some work experience, and if you don't have it, it's difficult to get the job. But what you can do is develop some open source packages, do some contributions so you can have some proof, right? It's also good for giving back to the community. It is always vetted by a community of experts in terms of quality and security because it's open source, everyone can just check it. Transparency with your user base, because you need to provide them the proof that it's good, it's nice to go, and it doesn't contain anything malicious. It's a good way to do that. It can be a side hustle, you can receive a lot of donations, a lot of contributions. It's also a good way to engage with your user base to understand what they actually need. If they have a bug, they can report it right away. And it's also nice for personal branding as well. Now, if you're motivated already, let's dive right in and practice some nice engineering. Foundations. First of all, before you dive right into the code, just decide if it's hot garbage or treasure. Okay, this is crucial because I did that mistake. Once I just built a package for 4 months, okay, and at the end of it, it only got 4 installs. Like 1 install for each month. It was a really bad experiment, I would say, but I learned a lot from it. That's why you have to pick your poison. Your package has to be either fun, useful, or mind-blowing. Such as Pokio, it was mind-blowing, really. I was seeing that, oh wow, interesting. Or you can make it fun. Or it has to be a tool that is really handy and useful. If your open source package doesn't check any of these, it's not going to hold. Because why would I be interested in that, right? It doesn't check any of them. And don't try to do niche concept, because if you try to go for edge cases or 15 people around the world, it doesn't matter if you just apply to all of them. Like, it's just 15 people, right? Try to play to the crowd. Know your audience. For example, don't try to develop packages for PHP 4, PHP 5, like that's in the past, it's gone. Stay up to date and know your audience. Try to get input from fellow developers. Ask them about their opinion. Ask them if they would actually use this package, if they would think it's useful. trust your gut, and just because you can doesn't mean you should, okay? Just follow the instincts. Now, let's go with the licensing, because most people actually don't know about licensing options in terms of open source. And what if I told you it's a crucial aspect? For example, let's take GPL 3.0, my favorite open source license, because it's contagious. It states that any other package that uses this open source package should and must disclose their source code. And most companies actually don't know that, and they actually face legal fines and lawsuits. It's really hard. And if you don't want to get into this whole licensing stuff, you can go with the easy option. MIT license is straightforward. It doesn't require much setting up, so it's easy. But whatever you do, don't go proprietary, okay? It's the chaotic evil. It's against that. Now, let's get right into how we developed the open source package, right, for Laravel. Well, it's quite easy. Spatie has this package skeleton that you can actually use to set up your package. You can just use that repository template and set it up using that. Afterwards, you need to go into the root of the repository and run the configure command. It will ask for some basic package names, namespacing, PSR rules, and stuff like that. Afterwards, your package is just ready to get development on. But we are not going to stop there. We also need to set up some Laravel sandbox application, because since we are just developing a Laravel package, we also need to be able to test it in an actual Laravel app. And you can just use this. Just use Laravel new package, my sandbox, for example. This is the name. Go into that, adjust your composer JSON. Now, this is the tricky part, because since you haven't published your open source application, you can't just install it using composer require, right? That's why you need to symlink it. You need to make it accessible for your local application. And don't forget the symlink, otherwise you will have to update it and install it once or again every time you make a change. Don't forget the minimum stability, because dev means it doesn't require the latest stable version. And that's pretty much it, I would say, in terms of setting up the development environment. Now, what's next? Let's say we have the package. Now what else do we know? Well, we need to also set up the service provider for our package. If you ever use Laravel, you would know that service provider is where you do your actual binding for the IOC container, and also you can define what you want your package to do once it's resolved. In the register method, try to do IOC container binding or loading your package config, as well as maybe defining how your instances will be created for your package. You can use factory method, you can use singletons. What you shouldn't do is reference other packages or any kind of other packages configs, because imagine it as like a desolate land where nothing is available yet and you just do very primitive and basic stuff. Most important is you do the container IOC binding. And for the boot method, you can do register event listeners, routes, or some macros perhaps. Basically, whatever your package is meant to do, you do in the boot, okay? But try to keep it simple, keep it concise, keep it compact, because you don't want to clutter all this code in the service provider. Let's see some example. This is from one of my packages. As you can see, I basically merged the config from user's config file and my default config. So I merged them. I also indicate that I will be releasing this as singleton instance, right? And in the boot, I indicate that my package actually has a command that comes packed with it. It also comes with configuration file that it publishes. Afterwards, I also indicate that I'll be registering a bunch of macros. And I just put that away, abstracted that in my actual service class. Now, let's go to the package discovery, right? And auto-loading, because this is important. If you make some sort of mistake here, your package won't be picked up for discovery during the whole boot up process. In this one, you see for providers, you have to indicate your namespace, how it will be resolved for your classes. And don't forget the aliases. For facade, there's an important distinction if you're not familiar with Laravel. In Laravel, facade is different than facade pattern, okay? It's a whole different thing. But facade allows you to simplify things and provide an interface for these kind of usages. And you can also define that as well. What's next? Let's say you did your service provider and now you're ready to basically develop your feature. You can just go along and do your feature. And after doing your feature, let's say you did a bunch of stuff, maybe register some macros, maybe define some commands, configs. Now what? Now we can move on to polishing part. And for polishing, you got multiple options and multiple things that you need to tackle first. First off, security. Personally, I would never use any package that doesn't look good or it looks shady, it doesn't inspire some security in me. I wouldn't do that because nobody would actually trust their whole commercial application to a shady package, right? Moreover, it's actually a proof that it's vetted against any kind of security vulnerabilities. Don't forget to enable it in your pipeline. As Nuno said, GitHub Actions is completely free and you can easily integrate these tools right into your pipeline to run every single time. And next up, for quality purposes, we got multiple options. It's a whole package, I will say. Quality is important for package development, both for performance, maintainability, and readability, obviously, because if it's not well code quality, nobody would actually want to contribute to that. People will have struggle making some changes or drafting some PRs perhaps. Performance is crucial for the adaptation of your package. If your package is blocking the boot up process of a Laravel application for 30 seconds, I'm not going to use that because it blocks everything up. It's not worth it. And next up, don't forget to also integrate in your pipelines. We got multiple tools here. If you're using Laravel, it's a good combination to have both of these tools, Laravel and PHP Stand. Both are quite fine. PHP Insights really good. Now it comes to cloud versus local. Personally, I like cloud tools more because this way I don't have any dependency. I can just forget about it, just push my code, and Sonar Cloud or Deep Source will pick up all these kind of things and do the scans automatically just for me and generate reports based on that. What else? Well, there's also testing and code coverage. For test, you can also use Orchestra's test benchmark, right? Because it also provides this test bench package that comes with it, and it allows you to test Laravel application features inside your package development environment. And code coverage, it's a good indicator for saying that your package is properly tested. Sometimes I'm seeing people don't even write tests or don't even have code coverage. It doesn't inspire confidence, right? If I see maybe 90% coverage, I can think that, okay, at least like the code is covered for. Like there are certain tests that touch code branches, and that's a good indicator. Don't forget, don't write tests only for the sake of code coverage, right? It's not a good thing to do. You should do tests for actual features and use cases. It doesn't help anyone if you're just trying to reach code coverage of 90%, right? And don't take half measures. Try to test as much features as possible because people will try to rely on this package, so you should be reliable. And for testing and code coverage, we got multiple options. First off, for generating code reports or running the test, you can use PES or PHP unit. As of late, I'm trying to transition into PES because, I mean, it's pretty good. I've been using PHP unit for quite a while now, but the PES has really nice syntax, I would say. And for visualization and insights for your code coverage reports, you can use CodeCo and Sonar Cloud. These tools are really fine, and all of the tools that I'm mentioning are completely free for open source. That's one of the benefits of developing open source software. Up next, since we did the polishing and the development, now we are ready for the composer JSON of our package. It's really simple. You just describe the name, description, keywords, type, license, stuff like that. And next up, don't forget the authors. We also have to put the authors in. Because you can indicate how many people worked on this project and what their roles were. And now the most important bit regarding the composer. Okay, this one's crucial because if you mess this one up, your package won't be able to pick up by auto discovery or booting. It's going to cause a lot of headaches for many people, so be careful about this one. First off, autoload. In autoload, you have to indicate how your package is resolved, like the namespace and the source code path for it. So be careful about that. You might be thinking, okay, what's PSR4 there? Well, you don't have to use PSR4. It's called good measure, but another option is PSR0. Don't go over there. It's quite old, so don't do that to yourself. Stick to PSR4 at least. There are, of course, newer ones that we can also use. Autoload dev is only for dev testing environment. This is also applicable for your CI/CD when you're running the tests. Now, up next, publishing, right? We prepared our composer JSON, everything is looking good, and we are thinking, okay, maybe I can publish it. Well, not yet, because you need to validate your composer package to see whether it's ready to publish or not. It's a really simple command, just to composer validate, maybe add the strict option to make sure it's good, and minimum stability. You have to indicate that it's stable, right? Before we release it into the nature. You can also release it at dev for early stages of the development. Try to stick to preferred stable. This is for your own dependencies, because as an open source package, you can also have multiple dependencies, right? And don't forget to include it in your CI/CD pipeline as well. Up next, let's also talk about versioning, because when you're going to release open source software, you need to know about semantic versioning standards. Well, for semantic versioning, it's a basic standard and pretty much everyone is using it at this point. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what does these numbers mean, right? Well, you can imagine this as a breaking change. Like whenever you do a new breaking change, maybe a refactoring that includes API changes, you change breaking change. Then if you do some patching, perhaps, like some bug fix, security fix, stuff like that, you change the fix, you update. Then the future, don't forget, future can be a new one, but it shouldn't break the existing APIs. If you're breaking existing implementations, existing APIs, that means you should go for the breaking change. Versions are set and released via Git tags. This might confuse some people. It also confused me initially because in Node.js environment, when you're doing open source software development, in your JSON file, you indicate the version. But in PHP ecosystem, you don't do that. You set the versions through Git tags. You just release them on GitHub, for example, and it will automatically just release it. You have to align with the similar conventions, suffix them for release identifiers as needed. It can be alpha versions, maybe release candidate, beta version, stuff like that. And try not to release your first version as production ready. That's too risky, okay, don't do that. Now we got the version, what's next? Well, for publishing, we need to go to packages. It's an integration, and that's basically the de facto platform for publishing your open source package. First, you need to submit your package to packages. It's a really simple process. Just put your URL of your GitHub repository, then confirm that package is available in the packages directory. Afterwards, you need to set Git hooks, because this way it will be picked up automatically when you release a new tag. If you don't do this, every time you release a new version, you have to go to packages and click update. It's a really vexing process. Trust me, you don't want any of that. Just set up your GitHub hooks. It's real simple. It's specific to your username. And this way, whenever you do push code in terms of like releasing a new version, it will be picked up by packages so to release a new version. Up next, let's assume we did the versioning and the packages, composer, all that kind of nice stuff. That means we are pretty much set to go for releasing our new software into the wild. Well, for that, you just release a new tag on GitHub. It's a really streamlined and simple process, I would say. And whenever you release the tag, don't forget it will trigger a webhook for packages to pick it up. Afterwards, just verify the new versions available on packages. And then the best part, the part that it makes me proud every single time, you just type your username and your package name, and it just gets your package through the internet. That means it's now available to be picked up by anyone. That's a really nice moment. That is my favorite moment from the open source development, I would say. Now, we did the publishing, right? Now it's available. Now we can everyone can install it in any Laravel application. That's good. That's nice. But what's next though? Like, the expectation is now the users and the stars will come pouring in, like there's no end to it. Well, let me tell you right now, it's not going to happen. Speaking from experience and the story I just shared previously, it doesn't happen. Well, as a matter of fact, probably your first dozen packages are going to fail. I've been there, done that. I'm sorry, but it's the experience that you learn, right? And this is basically how you learn from it. And if you ever want to get ahead of the game and maybe skip all those failures, and then let me share my experiences on how you can actually do the advertisement or marketing of your open source package. This is basically the platform tier list for marketing your open source software. obviously, Laravel News is the best one, I would say. It's really good. If you ever get featured on Laravel News, that's golden standard. Like, you're good to go. You will get a lot of attraction, a lot of stars, a lot of users. That's nice. Reddit, Lobsters, Stack Overflow is pretty good. Don't forget, Lobster is a closed community, so you can't just get in if you don't have the invite for it. Stack Overflow, you might be thinking like, how do we do that? Well, it's a bit like tricky. You have to search the feature you just developed. So you answer them, oh, you know what? I actually have a feature for it. Like, I actually have a package for it. You can just use it. And that's actually a good way to get started. Another vertical contribution, Medium, I wouldn't really recommend, because as we all know, Medium is a platform where everyone just posts their stuff. Nobody reads it, like, really. At this point, everyone just posting there and nobody reads it. Therefore, personally, I wouldn't recommend that. Up next, well, how does Mollie support open source software though? Now, we got 6 different SDKs for 6 different programming languages, and we also span over 7 different frameworks. That's also nice. And the most impressive thing is these packages, these SDKs, are maintained constantly. Imagine the effort. Up next, we have community support through Discord. We have a big community on Discord. You can always join. You can always ask your questions. And through there, we are allowing and fostering collaboration and support. Dozens of questions are answered each day in the Discord channels. And we have product, API changes, news available and posted there constantly. Most and foremost, I would say, sponsoring events. Well, you're here. We are talking about open source, so Mollie also sponsors events like this. And we have partnerships with Hivas, Helios, Majas, and stuff like this. And these are open source first establishments, so Mollie is also entering partnerships with these kind of establishments. Now, also kudos to all contributors out there. Shout out to all of you doing your best, doing open source contributions. It doesn't matter what kind of open source contribution it is. You're all truly wonderful. Now, the big question, how can you do your part, right? We talked about what's the motivation, how we do this, and why we should do that, how we can do that. But the thing is, how you can actually do your part. Well, you don't have to be a techie. You don't even have to be a technical guy. Let's say you're non-tech. You can always create a bug report or do documentation, translations. Oh, sorry. Maybe later. All right. You can do translations, documentation. Perhaps you can help with shipping. Or you can always spread the OSS gospel, right? Because you need to reach other people to extend the community. And if you're a techie, you can always do some proposed features, maybe open up some PRs or help set up the CI/CD, maybe do some security scans. All this kind of stuff are always good. And okay, yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I hope you enjoyed this session. I hope I was able to convey the idea of open source software and how you can actually build one, starting with today. Now, we got some time for questions. I can take any questions you might have. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot. And if you want to get some resources from the slides and the links, it's always available in this QR code. Feel free to scan, and thank you.
So we are actually doing the questions during the networking. So if you have any questions, either for him or just for me, you can do them during the networking. If you don't mind. Yeah. And thank you so much for your presentation. It was really cool. Another round of applause, please. Okay. So cool, man, to see so many PHP today here. Also a little bit of Laravel, a little bit of open source. Thank you all for coming today, by the way. It's really cool to have someone, so many people around Portugal here. We have people from Porto. We have people all around Portugal coming straight to Lisbon to be on this meetup. So I would really say thank to you because of that. 2 more things. The first one is that, again, within 5 minutes, all of us are going for networking. And that's a very important thing, okay? Make sure you make friends, speak to different people. There is people here with a lot of expertise in different expertise. So make sure you speak with everyone and make friends, okay? During networking, we have time. And most importantly, we have an after networking thing as well, okay? I don't know if you guys know that is literally a place which is literally 3 minutes away, walking, call it Canil, okay? So after being at Mollie, for those of you who want to have another beer or another Coke or whatever, we are going to this place, literally 3 minutes away from here. We can walk, all of us together. If you don't want to walk, you can just search for Canil Marquês, okay? That being said, thank you so much again, Mollie, for hosting the PHP Portugal again. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being at home, watching us once again, and catch you all next time. All right, I think the goal now is that we go that room, right? All right, let's go that room for a couple of beers and pizza.